Hey, my name's Nick, and today I'm going to be demonstrating how to do x-rays of the femur, the APs and the laterals, the proximal and the distal portions of them as well. This is my patient. His name's Sam West. How I would initially start would go out to the waiting area. I would call for the patient. Once the patient came and approached me, I would double check their wristband, make sure they are who they say they are. Once I get to the exam room, then I would ask the patient to repeat his name and date of birth, so I have 2 points, and confirm that those are correct. Then we would talk to the patient to figure out why we are doing x-rays of the femur. The order that we have is that we're going to be doing the right femur, AP and lateral. Talk to the patient, figure out why we're doing that, make sure we're taking x-rays of the correct anatomy. Once I had the patient history and found out why we were taking the x-rays, I would instruct the patient if they had any jeans, belt, any metal from the waist below, have them remove that. If they needed a gown, provide them with the gown, point them to the bathroom, and wait for them to come out. Upon coming out of the bathroom, I would have them lay supine on the table. This is left, this is right. We're going to be x-raying the right femur. So I would instruct to the patient what we would be doing and how to position. So to start, we have him on his back, so we get the AP, just the front side view, and then we'll be rolling him over so we can get the lateral views. For this, we will be using roughly a KVP of 80 and a mass of 8. Our cassette size is going to be 14 by 17. There'll be no angle on the CR. For all of these images, since we will be doing the right femur, the right marker will be on the lateral aspect of the femur the entire time, and we will be shielding the patient from roughly here all the way back, as long as it doesn't compromise any picture of the hip joint. To start, we will need, we'll have the patient rotate its right leg inside about 5 degrees. Just so we can place that femur in a true AP position and the knee joint at condyles are equal distance. Once we had the patient rotate the foot in and we were in true AP, we would start with the proximal image. We would make sure we were including the hip joint and as far down on the femur as we could. And then we would collimate on the left and right side as much as we could. We're probably going to need all the distance that we can, and have the IR in portrait, cassette in portrait, so we can have the biggest length. So the 17 here and the 14 here. As soon as we had it proper position, as much of the proximal end of the humerus, to make sure we have the whole hip joint in view, instruct the patient to stay still, don't move, and we would step out and we would make the exposure. We'd come back in after making sure that the image was of well enough, and then we would be doing the distal portion of the femur. We would not necessarily mess with our collimation, but we would move the table so we could make sure that the knee joint is now in position, as so the x-ray will include that. So we don't need the hip joint anymore because we've already achieved that on the proximal image. So now the distal image will be getting the knee joint as far back on the femur as possible. We'll be giving the patient the same instructions so they will not, so the image will not be skewed in any way. And then after we've rotated the foot in 5 degrees, we'll step away, and then we'll make the exposure after telling the patient to stay still, don't move. Make sure it's good enough, and then we'll come back out, and then we'll talk to the patient about the lateral. So for the lateral projection, we'll be instructing the patient to take the left knee, bend it up 90 degrees. We're going to roll over on the left side a little bit, so that would be propping them up. Then we're going to bend the right knee about 45 degrees, so we can get that femur in a true lateral position. We'll go back and we'll start with the proximal end of it. And we'll make sure everything's pictured. 17 and then 14 on these sides, collimate as tightly as possible, right marker on the lateral side. And after we had made sure that our light field was collimated to what it needed to be, and the proximal hip joint was in focus and in display, we would instruct the patient, don't move, stay still. We would step out behind the wall, make the image, and they would come back out after verifying that the image was good enough. We would then come out and do the same thing we did for the AP. We got to do the distal image for the lateral. So we would set up, include the distal, to make sure the knee joint's on there. The proximal, the hip joint, does not need to be there anymore since we've already imaged that. So we would then make sure that we've got the distal part of the femur. So after we have correctly positioned there, instruct the patient, stay still, don't move. We step away behind the wall, make the exposure, verify that it's good enough. Then we would come back out and we would instruct the patient that we were all done. We would lower the table, we'll get off, have them go change, and then we'll be able to go and escort him out since the procedure is done.